Transportation and journey scenes. They're in almost every film that we watch. However, they need to serve a purpose beyond just showing a character go from one place to another. If they don't, you might consider removing them from the film or editing them in a much abbreviated way. Let's look at some of the additional functions that these travel and journey scenes can serve. The first function may be to reveal the main character's environment and their world to the audience. Some great examples of the many types of journey scenes that you'll encounter can be found in the film Whiplash. In this example, the film opens with the protagonist practicing the drums. Then we're delivered a travel montage of him leaving the practice hall and heading to the movies, where we'll end up meeting Nicole, his soon-to-be girlfriend. The function of this travel scene is to introduce us to the character's world, in this case, New York City. Because this takes place near the beginning of the film, it's a logical sequence to include and is not wasted screen time. If this same type of travel montage were shown later in the film, after we're already familiar with the character's world, it would likely be something that we may want to edit down or completely remove, as it wouldn't be serving any other purpose other than getting the character from point A to point B. And that is something that we can do through editing in a much more efficient manner. More on that in a bit. Something to note, with an extended travel montage like this, music is almost always brought on to help bridge the two locations, as well as to create the desired atmosphere and emotion to keep things interesting. Moving on to point number 2, the journey might allow for a moment of contemplation. Travel and journey scenes in films can be a great opportunity to give the audience time to think about events that have just occurred. They also help a viewer to understand the mind of the character as we see them doing some thinking or reacting. In this scene, Miles is heading home on a bus after drum class. He performed well in class, impressed the instructor, and was promoted to a core member of the band.
All right, let's get to work, ladies. Tanner, what are you doing? It's core only today. I don't have time for alternates. Don't forget to turn Neiman's pages. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4.
During his journey on the bus, we're given the chance to see how he feels about that, which turns out to be excited, proud, and with an increasing air of confidence. And as it happens, the bus ride home also serves another function. Sometimes the journey contains a notable plot point that occurs along the way. During this same bus ride, our character receives a text from his girlfriend looking to spend some more time with him, which he completely ignores. From this, we learn that his priorities are focused on his musical career, and it sets us up for some of the relationship problems that are to come. All this gets accomplished during a 22-second scene on a bus. Pretty efficient, I'd say. Now, the fact is that most of the time, our characters' journeys are invisible. Through basic cuts and audio changes, we can help the audience intuitively know that a character has traveled from one place to another. Maybe it's a smash cut like this. Or maybe it's a character sitting in one location, and then we simply cut to them arriving in a new one. Now, what if you find yourself in the tricky situation of needing to make it clear to your viewer that your character has, say, traveled on a plane, but you don't have or can't afford to get the footage? Well, stock footage is one option, and that can work pretty well sometimes. But you know, stock footage can sometimes look a bit too stock, and using the same stock shot in your film that's also been used in hundreds of other films can just end up looking a little bit lame. There's another good option though. You can simulate the journey using only sound, which is both inexpensive, quick to do, and it keeps the story rapidly moving forward. Here's an example of this being done in the 2004 film Garden State, where the airplane journey of Zach Braff's character is quickly and efficiently depicted using only a simulated airport announcement,
Flight number 121 with non-stop service to
a
Newark
dip to black,
International will be departing from gate 32.
and the sound of a plane flying by. So let's try something like this in our own cut. Here we've got a sequence from the feature that we've been working on, Chapman. It covers scenes 14 through 18, and we've actually already edited this together for you. At this point of the film, Alex has received a letter in the locksmith shop notifying him about a funeral being held in his Colorado hometown, and then ultimately he's made the decision to attend. Have a look. So as you saw, these scenes depict Alex riding in a taxi, traveling by plane, and finally arriving in his destination's airport. In this film, it so happens that we do have this coverage shot, and the way it's currently edited together shows the full journey in the taxi and on the plane, similar to how it's written into the script. But what if we didn't have this travel coverage? Or maybe what if we just wanted to abbreviate the whole section because it was slowing down the pace of the film too much and really wasn't serving any of the additional functions of travel scenes that we discussed earlier? So let's watch what we did. In our timeline here, you can see that we've done a considerable amount of sound design to build this moment. First, let's take a look at what we have on our video tracks. On our first layer of video, we have 2 shots. To avoid making a hard cut, we used a crossfade into black, and then a crossfade up from black in between them. There's a little bit of time between each shot's fade to give the impression that time has passed. Though these moments are continuous in the plot, they would obviously not be continuous in real time. So check out the visuals here without any of the audio. Though this kind of works, it's not really getting the point across just yet. So the next step is to build in some of the sound design elements to clue the audience in as to what those visuals represent. So here on the left of the timeline, we've got our edit from the apartment scene, scene 12, which you should have already cut back in lesson 24. The first thing we added in here were the airplane travel sounds. You can go with a variety of options in a scenario like this, but for us, we chose very basic airplane sounds of a takeoff and a landing. These were blended together. On the top track here, we have the audio of the airplane taking off, and as that fades out, we mixed in some of the audio of an airplane landing. That's definitely the shortest flight I've ever taken. So let's listen to what it sounds like with just these airplane sounds. Right away, we're starting to see this come together, and it's much clearer what the visuals are trying to get across. But it's still missing a little bit of the small details that remind you of an airplane. With sound design, it's those small details that tend to resonate the strongest. In our case, it's this sound right here. This is a sound that, if you heard it, would be immediately recognizable as the seatbelt light in an airplane. And oftentimes, this light turns on right around the time that you're landing. So we mixed it in with our other sounds, and you get this. And that's it. Except maybe not. There is one more piece of audio in there that we auditioned. Listen to this.
Flight number 957 with nonstop service to Aspen will be departing from gate 21.
We went ahead and sourced a voiceover artist to record an airport announcer. Now, we did need to open up this section of our cut a little bit so that the announcer has room to speak before the plane sounds take over. Once we put it into the timeline, we needed to apply a few effects to give it the right airport loudspeaker feel. First, we applied an equalizer effect, and in it, we simply just reduced some of the higher frequencies, which decreased the most with distance. Your editing program should have a very similar effect, and you should be able to adjust this parameter very easily. As with most audio effects, it's all about experimentation, so try it out until you get something that sounds like this.
Flight number 957 with nonstop service to Aspen will be departing from gate 21.
Next, we stacked a reverb effect. We wanted something that sounded distant. We tweaked some of the settings to give it that distant source sound with a lot of echo, kind of like you were in a long hallway of an airport terminal. Just like your EQ settings, you're going to need to play with the reverb effect in your editing software, though most reverb tools will have similar settings, such as the decay, the type of reverberation, and then how much wet or dry influence to give the effect. Check it out with both these effects in place.
Flight number 957 with nonstop service to Aspen will be departing from gate 21.
So we placed this audio just before Alex leaves frame and prior to the fade to black. Let's listen to everything together.
Flight number 957 with nonstop service to Aspen will be departing from gate 21.
With this series of sounds, we were able to make it appear as though Alex took a quick flight and arrived at his destination. One note to make here is that the announcer audio maybe could come across as very on the nose. With the sound of the airplane combined with the seatbelt ding and the visuals, the announcer audio is just another added layer of exposition, or plot-splaining, for the audience that they might not need in order to understand what's going on. Sometimes less is more. So ultimately, we did decide to remove it, and our final travel scene went something like this.
She was in love with you? Wake up!
So this lesson has some optional homework. First, load up your edit of Scene 12 in Alex's apartment from Lesson 24. Second, cut in the pre-edited feature of Alex in the baggage claim area and place it at the end of your sequence. It's about 13 minutes and 47 seconds into the feature. Third, use sound to simulate Alex's plane travel between the two locations. You should have already downloaded all the sound and Foley that we used in the file on the downloads page, called SFX and Foley used in FEP edits. Coming up in the next lesson, we're going to dig into the technique of jump cutting. All right, I'll see you in a bit. It used to be a hard and fast rule that cuts should be invisible, and editing should never call attention to itself. Not anymore. Audiences are largely more forgiving now, and jump cuts in action, drama, horror, and even comedy have become much more acceptable than before. A jump cut is an edit that fragments a particular action over time. The camera angle between the two shots often doesn't change or only changes slightly, appearing to cause a jump in position of the subjects in the frame. Let's dig deeper and look at some reasons why you would use jump cuts in your editing. First, jump cuts can be very effective at heightening an unsettling or disorienting moment. In this scene from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Rick's frustration with his failures on set are magnified by a series of jump cuts.
I practiced them and now I don't look like I goddamn practiced them. You're sitting there like a fucking baboon.
The jittery nature of the editing aligns perfectly with the character's insecurity and anxiety about his acting ability. And in this unsettling moment from the 2002 film The Ring, the jump cut of Samara's movements, teleporting her from one place to another, lets us know that she's an entity that's not of this world. And of course, the visually jarring nature of the shot works to enhance the scare itself. Also, jump cuts can add style and rhythm to a variety of genres. It's a common technique in trailers where music will drive the cuts and determine their exact cadence. The rapid cutting pace and quick displacement of the characters and objects within the frame suit the format's need for imparting a lot of information in a limited amount of time perfectly.
Give me some of that. Give me some of that.
In addition, jump cuts can help to evoke your character's inner state. In this scene from The Tree of Life, jump cuts evoke the fragmentation of memory of the main character. The grammar of the film's language is informed and enhanced by this specific style of editing. Finally, and most commonly, jump cuts can accelerate the narrative by breaking up shots so that only the necessary actions remain on screen. In this scene from District 9, Vickus's search of the alien shack is fragmented in a series of jump cuts until he finds an object that will have a significant impact on the plot.
But I don't trust it. You know, I don't trust anything.
District 9 uses a found footage conceit in its construction, presenting much of its material as discovered video recording. Jump cuts are common in this style of filmmaking, as they reinforce the notion that the footage is being presented as is, and it wasn't edited in a conventional way, if at all. Using jump cuts to accelerate the narrative is also used frequently in YouTube videos, particularly vlogs and travel videos. They accelerate and add interest to what could easily be slow and boring to watch. These types of videos aren't typically shot with multiple cameras and additional coverage options, so jump cuts are often a necessity as much as they are a stylistic choice. Used judiciously, jump cuts can give your piece an edgy, stylistic feel, while presenting the audience with information in a rapid-fire fashion. As with most things though, the trick is to not overuse them. Now, I'm going to pass things over to our trainer Brian, who's going to walk you through editing jump cuts. Alex has recently arrived back in his hometown in Colorado, and he's breaking into a hotel room to spend the night before attending the funeral.
This demo is going to be all about doing jump cuts in your scenes. Now, in this particular scene from Chapman, Alex is going to enter this hotel room, and the way that they filmed it is really interesting. They allowed this one single shot to play out for a long period of time without any real coverage of what Alex is doing. Partially, that's because what Alex is doing isn't tremendously important in terms of covering it from a very specific camera angle, but also it might work really well to apply some jump cuts to speed up the time that he's in this room. So let me just play for you what this piece of raw footage looks like. And there you have it. We have Alex's adventure to the hotel room. Now, this is great. You know, he does a lot of really interesting stuff. It is kind of humorous, but it is quite long. Now, we're not going to talk about the length of this as it pertains to the entire film because we don't yet know how this is actually going to play in the flow of the movie. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to build the entire scene first, and I'm going to also build the scene preceding it, where Alex approaches the hotel, follows a couple into the door, and then sneaks into that hotel room. Then we're going to take a look at how we can take this shot here, use some jump cuts as a method of compressing some of the time that Alex is in the room to try out some different editing methods to see if we can speed up the way that this scene plays out. So let's jump right into it here. I'm going to load my selects sequence into my source. So I'm going to open up my temp edit sequence from my bin with my sync, selects, and temp edit. I'm going to load my selects into the source here. And the way that I have this laid out is that I have green markers at the top of every shot where it begins. So I didn't need to necessarily do a full line breakdown here because there really isn't very much dialogue to break down for this particular scene. So in the case of the way that I designed this to be edited with, I'm just going to hop over to each of these different markers, find the head of the shot that I want, and cut it into my sequence. So the first action that happens is Alex is going to be outside of the hotel here. He watches this couple walk in. We follow Alex and this couple as he kind of uses them to sneak into the door. You can see as they open the door, he runs up. And he gets his hand in the door just in time before it closes. So we know right away the goal of what Alex is doing here is to sneak into the hotel. So in an effort to just kind of speed along getting the edit put together, I'm going to grab the last take of this shot here. I'm just going to cut it into my timeline. So now I'm going to look at some of the coverage surrounding this moment. Now we have a shot from inside the hotel hallway where Alex sneaks in, and then we follow him all the way up the hallway, up to the room that he's going to break into. But we're not quite there yet. We also have this close-up of Alex to consider while he's out staring at the couple as they're parking in the parking lot. And then we have this point of view shot of Alex as he looks at the floor of the dust outside the door to know if it's a room he can actually break into or not. So let's cut in some of these extra shots. I'm going to grab the last take of this one here and just cut it into my timeline. I'm going to put it before this shot. I'm going to hop over to the shot where Alex actually comes into the hotel hallway. I'm going to grab the last take of that one. And I'm going to take him all the way down the hallway here, up to this door, where he does eventually break in. Just like this. And he's futzing with the lock here, so we'll just cut away right there. And we'll put that after he runs up to the door. So this is a really, really rough version of the scene. The goal being to just get something down on the timeline so we can watch it and figure out what we need to change or do differently to make it stronger. Let's play this back as is.
I think he's facing me out. I started.
Here we go, ready?
Yeah.
Car's coming. He's still got his light flashlight up. Right? Here we go.
Oh, God.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I'm coming. I'm coming. Here I am. Here I am. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, come on, hold on to me.
Okay.
All right. What can I do? What can I do?
I don't know.
I wish
don't know
I
what
knew.
you can do.
Well, I want to get us to the
You
door.
would have been in the classes if you
I'm
would have
so-
listened.
I was
you
in
know
the
what
classes.
You're walking me too
Oh,
fast.
okay.
Wait a
Okay.
minute.
Well, but you said the water broke.
I did.
I know, so what should we do? Am I okay?
Oh, I feel the head.
Oh, no, you can't. No, not yet, not yet. We got to get to the pool. We got to get to the pool. Let me get to the door. Here.
Okay.
Here.
Okay. Oh no. God.
There, I got it. There. Okay. Here we go. All right. Here, let me get the other door. Okay. All right. Not yet. We got to get to the pool.
Shut up. I
no,
know
I'm not
what
gonna-
we're doing. I know what we're doing.
Okay. I'll shut up.
Okay.
All right, up the stairs, real easy. You're doing so good. I'm so proud of you.
Margie, you in there? I forgot my key. Sorry. Margie!
So it's 3 of the worst edits ever. Let's go ahead and fix those up. So obviously what happened here is I just dropped in some clips without really even watching them first, and that's okay. For me, the goal is to just get things laid out in order on the timeline first, to figure out what the flow of events should be. Right away, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do here. For one, I can't let Alex look at the couple and exit this shot all at once. We have to see what he's looking at. So we have him looking, and he notices something. So his eyes are tracking something here. So here, he's staring off. We have to go ahead and make a cut right in the middle here between these two moments, and then take some of what Alex is looking at and play it out in between so we can see what his perspective is of. So here we have him waiting for this car to pass, and then once we do that, we have a bit of a rack focus. So right here, the focus racks back to this truck in the background. So we can use this rack focus moment to get us between the first shot of Alex, which is right here, him looking, and the second shot of Alex as his eyes move across the parking lot. So we're going to find that moment now, right there, and we're going to make a cut. We're going to grab that moment. I'm going to move it in between these two sections here. I'll just move these out of the way, put this in here, and then close everything back up.
I'm coming. Here I am. Here I am. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, come on, hold on to me.
Okay.
All right. What can I do? What can I do?
So now as he exits frame, it makes a lot more sense for us. Let me go ahead and just trim the back of this shot here and combine it with the beginning of this shot. I think we need to be right around here where Alex is actually approaching the couple. So something like this. We'll just trim this out of the way and close this gap. Now it'll play like this.
Okay.
All right. What can I do? What can I do? So, what should we do? Am I okay?
Where's the other hand?
Oh, no, you can't.
So it's a lot clearer of a moment here. We have Alex looking off towards the couple at the parking lot. Then we see what he's looking at. It's a man getting a woman out of the passenger side of her car. He's watching them. We're curious why he's so suspicious. He clears frame, and then he starts to approach them. Now we're going to take that approach all the way up to the door here. They're going to open the door, which we're going to see very clearly in this shot. Alex is going to run towards that door, and then we have to see what he's actually doing here. So it looks like he might just be trying to be nice and holding the door for them. But in actuality, he's actually trying to sneak into the hotel, which we can see in this shot right here. So we're going to try and line up this moment of Alex putting his hand in the door, right about here, to something that lines up right here. Maybe this moment. And we'll just trim these together and play this back.
Okay, here we go. All right. Here, let me get the other door. Let me get the other door. Okay, all right, not yet.
That's great. That fixes a lot of our continuity errors and makes the scene flow a lot better. Now, there is one thing I want to point out, which we're not going to address too much right now, and there is a pretty gratuitous continuity error. So this couple is in the second set of doors as they enter the hotel, and then when we cut to the reverse angle, Alex is now at the second set of doors, already through the first set of doors. But because we're not seeing the geography of where these doors actually play out in this camera angle, it's okay to sort of cheat that. So now we have to let Alex walk all the way down this hallway because there really is no coverage to cut to get us out of this camera angle. So he walks us all the way down the hall, listens in on the first door. Then he tries to sneak into the first room that he sees. He calls out somebody's name. There's somebody in there, so he can't break in. And when he gets to the second room, he notices something on the ground. Let's check out our selects here and see if there's something in there that might actually help us with this moment. So I have a couple of shots in the hotel here. It looks like one of them is a tilt down towards the floor. Let's try this out. I'm going to grab just the beginning of this up to here. I'm going to cut that in right in this moment. So we have to fix the continuity. Alex is already looking down at this point. So we'll just go ahead and trim the beginning of this shot to right about here. Now, we might not need to worry about his entire look down the hallway here. Maybe we can turn him back towards the door, right here. So instead of letting him look all the way down the hall, when we return to Alex, he'll already be looking back at the door, as the perspective of this point of view shot sort of suggests. So kind of like this.
Margie!
And we'll just chop it off right here. Let's go ahead and play this back and see what a difference all these little edits make to our scene.
I'm coming. Here I am. Here I am. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, come on, hold on to me.
Okay.
All right. What can I do? What can I do? So, what should we do? Am I okay?
Where's the other hand?
Oh, no, you can't. No, not yet, not yet, not yet. We got to get to the pool. We got to get to the pool. Let me get to the door. Let me get to the door. Here.
Okay.
Here.
Okay. What? Oh. Oh no. God.
There, I got it. There. Okay. Here we go. All right. Here, let me get the other door. Let me get the other door. Okay. All right. Not yet.
Margie, you in there? I forgot my key. Sorry. Margie!
So in general, it's a lot better. Now, there are some little things that we can finesse to make it a little bit stronger and make it make a little bit more sense. And they are mostly audio things. We're going to do them really quickly together, just to demonstrate some of the things I would do in a rough assembly before I showed this to anybody. So the first thing I want to do is fix this discontinuous audio in the beginning here. It just is really rough and hard to watch to understand what's actually supposed to be going on in the scene. So we have to kind of clean that up. So the first is that Alex is watching this couple walk, and we're hearing audio supposedly from their lavaliers, which makes it very clear what they're saying, even though from our perspective, and more importantly, from Alex's perspective, they would be, 30 feet away. So we shouldn't really be able to hear anything they're saying at all, or if we do hear it, it should be pretty far away and muffled. Let's go ahead and find their audio, move them to their own tracks, and then make them much lower in volume. So I believe their audio are these two clips here. We'll solo the first track to listen.
Where's the other hand?
No, you can't.
Okay, and the second track.
No, not yet, not yet. We got to get to the pool.
So it sounds like this is both of their lavalier microphones, unless they are so loud that Alex's microphone is picking them up. Let's try this over here. Yeah, so that's her microphone, and this top one is his microphone. So we're not hearing Alex at all here. I'm going to take their audio, lower it down here. I'll take their audio from the first shot and lower it down here as well. I'm going to just drag some of this out, and then drag some of this out. And we're going to add some crossfades. Fade in, fade out. Maybe here we're going to hear a little bit of the beginning of this as well. We're going to fade this in. And then here, as they enter the hotel, same thing, we're going to kind of fade them out as if they were going down the hallway. And we're going to take the volume of all of these clips and lower them quite a lot. Let's go -18 on each of these. And then let's just play this back and see how it sounds.
I'm coming. Here I am. Here I am. Here we go. Okay.
Even -18 sounds too high. Let's go -25. Now we're going to take some of the audio from the previous shot of just Alex by himself and drag this out. And then from the beginning as well. And we're going to blend those together with a crossfade.
Come. Here I am. Here I am. Here we go. Okay, hold on. All right. What can I do? What can I do?
I don't know.
Well, I want to do. So.
And then we don't want to let this audio presence die out too much. So we'll extend this out just a little bit more and kind of fade that out.
What should we do? Am I okay?
I feel the hand.
Oh, no, you can't.
Now, in a perfect world, when we get a little bit more down to it, we're going to add some audio ambience of a parking lot, ambience of maybe crickets at night or distant dogs barking, something to give this a little more life. But for the moment, this is just making a little bit more sense, and that's what's really key here. I'm also going to bring in some more audio from the start of the hotel shot. Right here. Fade some of this in.
Here, let me get the other door. Let me get the other door. Okay, all right, not yet. Let me get to the pool.
Shut up. I know what we're doing. I know what we're doing.
Okay, I'll settle.
Okay.
All right, up the stairs. Go easy. You're doing so good.
And then maybe right here I would add a door slamming sound as if they entered a hotel room. Because here they're gone, so as Alex turns the corner, we should still be hearing that couple as they were rounding the corner themselves and entering a hotel room. Then there's some little things, like Alex leans in on this door and listens. We're kind of missing whatever audio he is actually hearing inside the room. Perhaps it's more of this couple arguing. And then there's lots of other little things, like more specific footsteps, clothing rustle, lots of little things that Alex can do, which are all things that we're going to cover in our lesson about Foley audio, and really help bring a scene to life and tie it together with the picture. Now let's go ahead and speed ahead to our jump cutting section. So we've completed putting this beginning scene together, and it's time to look at the next scene. So I'm going to drag my selects into my source here. I'm going to go to the next shot. So that next shot in this sequence would be this shot of Alex entering the hotel room. Now, all he does is open the door, comes into the room, looks through all of this different stuff, eventually finds this box of paint cans, and then sits on the bed and huffs some paint. It's pretty long. I'm going to cut it in. That takes our scene that was originally 2 minutes and 11 seconds and makes it a total of 4 minutes and 12 seconds. So twice the length. So we doubled the length of our scene, and one shot takes up half of that entire amount of time. This could be a very slow moment in the film if we don't find some way to make it a little bit more interesting. Now, at the moment, the pace of this entire scene is a little bit slower. He's kind of walking slowly down the hallway here. He breaks into the room. But it feels like once we get into the room, there's an opportunity for us to play around with time a little bit. Since Alex is going to start doing drugs, and it's going to change his perception of time, and the film is going to begin playing with our perception of time as an audience with various flashbacks, it may be something that's quite acceptable for us to try to pull off in a scene like this. So how would we accomplish doing some jump cuts? Now, with my clip in the timeline, what I would probably do is make some in-out selections of the areas that I want to remove, and just go ahead and delete them and close up the gap in between. For some of you, that might be called a ripple delete. In other places, that could be a lift or an extract, depending on the program that you're using. So for example, here, the door opens. Let's go ahead and have him picking the lock right here, and as he's messing with the lock, we're going to cut right away to the door just opening. So right here, the door is kind of in action opening up. So I'll make my in-out selection, and I will delete that. We're going to make that transition a little bit more punchy with some sound effects a little bit later on. Now, one note about sound as we're working through this, let's go ahead and get rid of these two audio clips. They appear to be blank, so they're not doing us any favors. And we can take this one right here so that we can blend things together. For example, a crossfade right here might help us out. Great. Now, once Alex enters the room, I no longer care about him standing in the doorway. Once we see the door open, that is the important information that we need. So the next thing that I want to focus on is the light switch. So I can go ahead and cut right here as the light is turning on and remove this chunk of time. And that's pretty cool. I could even go ahead and take this audio and begin to checkerboard it. So I'm going to lower it down a track, extend some of this one out, extend some of this one out. I would just do a little bit of a crossfade on each of these. That's pretty neat. So now once he turns on that light, we can skip a lot of what he's doing here. So he turns on the light, lowers his hands, and we can skip a lot of this. The next thing he does is turns on this light. So we're looking to create our own rhythm intentionally out of the edits. When jump cutting, you're looking to cut from one action to the next, removing most of the empty space between them. It becomes a visually abbreviated story that should still make sense to the viewer. Something kind of like this. We could even make this a little bit shorter here. Why don't we try cutting this even shorter? And that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and extend these audio clips out just a little bit, and we're going to crossfade them. With jump cuts, it's nice to have little L cuts and J cuts with your audio to kind of bring in the audio from the next shot and fade out the audio from the previous shot, overlapping one another. So now Alex is going to walk around the room. He's going to look at some stuff here. I like him kind of grabbing things. That's really the key here. So he turns on the light, begins to take a step forward, and we know what he's in here for. Now we're not idiots. The audience knows why he's broken into this room. So let's go ahead and jump right to the action. He grabs this bag. And then we're going to let him do something with this bag. Let's see, he shakes it. Nothing's in there. Then we'll cut. So he lifts up the plastic here. So we'll start right about here. Lifts it up, opens the fridge. I think he says a line here. And then we don't have to see him close the fridge. We can let him keep it open. And we can cut away from this a moment. So he kind of exits frame. We don't know what he's doing, and we don't have any other coverage of him doing something. So let's just cut all of this out. Let's bring him right back over here. I like the idea of cutting in as he's moving this light off of the plastic bin, because this audio transition is going to be really neat if we overlap some of that audio. Let's go ahead and checkerboard this audio now, and we'll just go ahead and make those checkerboarded overlaps. Now let's play this out from the beginning and see how it works out for us. So our edit here makes a moment that was, I think, intended to be a bit of a darkly humorous moment into something a little bit more broadly humorous, as Alex tries to break into every facet of this room and can't seem to succeed at finding something he wants, whether it's some snacks or something to drink. Eventually, he does find the paint cans. And we do have a reaction shot of that, as well as a close-up of the paint cans to focus on. So we can jump into our selects reel to start working on the rest of this scene. So the next thing that we see, would be this close-up shot of what Alex is doing. So we see he looks at the paint cans. We know that he has a drug problem. So immediately we go, oh, I know what this is for. And then we also have a reaction shot of Alex. Let's try going from the wide shot here, where we can't really see what's in those plastic bin, straight to his reaction shot. It'll feel almost like yet another jump cut, where we're not telling the audience what's actually in there until we actually see his reaction, and then we show what he's seeing. Let's go to the last take here and just see how he looks in his performance.
Dope. What? Dope.
Great, so he's got a nice little performance here. Let's check out a previous take.
Dope.
I think I like take 3 a little bit better. His eyes are a little bit more clear. So we'll find an in point for that. Then he reaches for it, and that's when we'll cut to the reaction shot. So let's go ahead and have him open this up. And then we'll cut in our shot of Alex. Maybe a little bit less of his movement here at the beginning.
Dope.
And maybe we're withholding too long before showing what he sees.
Dope.
So right there sounds like a good place to cut into his point of view shot of those paint cans. Let's go back and find those. I like him dropping the rest of the plastic bin tops here. And then grabbing one of them. Let's cut that in.
Dope.
So now we're going to go to his reaction shot again as he grabs the paint can and steps out of frame. Let's go back to take 3 and see what he does there. Yep, this is really good. He's looking at the paint can now. And he'll walk out of frame. Let's go ahead and use that, and I'm going to cut that in. Now, as he exits frame, we can go ahead and cut out all of this stuff. See him grab the bag from earlier. And bring these together. Now, I believe there's a close-up shot where we sort of fake the actor actually breathing into this bag. I certainly hope the actor didn't have to do this for real, and I'm assuming that's why they went to a close-up. And right there is a really nice action shot of him going ahead and breathing into the bag. Let's go ahead and get rid of this tail end of video that we don't need. And that effectively ends the scene for us. Now, there's a couple things I want to comment on here, specifically regarding the jump cuts. Now, in the earlier part of the scene, let's just watch it again to refresh our memory.
Dope.
Now you can see right up here, we have quite a rhythm going on with the cadence of our edits. And it slows down a little bit when we get back here, but then it really slows down right here because we're holding on to this single wide shot again. There is no close-up coverage of any of these actions on the bed. And now we of course could just let him leave frame here and then cut right to this shot here on the bed. And that might actually work great. We can try it out. And it does work pretty good. But let's just say, for example, that we wanted to actually try to make this wide shot work and play with the same time jumping effect that we did earlier. Now we could do the same thing, and we can let him go get the bag. Cut to right here, he's grabbing the bag. So we won't even begin with a continuous shot from the previous angle. We'll go ahead and jump cut pretty much right away going into the wide shot here. So he grabs the bag, and then we'll go ahead and cut this out and cut right to him shaking the paint can. There's going to be some great audio of that shaking noise pre-lapping into the previous shot. Then he's going to open the paint can and start spraying it into the bag. So right here, we actually see some of those fumes coming out. We can cut out all this action in between. Let him do this. Now we could let this one play for quite a long time actually, because it's part of the humor of the cadence of these cuts. Then we can cut out him releasing his finger and cut right to this shot in the close-up. Now let's go ahead and just checkerboard this audio here and play it back. It's two very interesting and very different flavors of the same scene. I'm going to leave that there for now because I want to talk about jump cutting one more shot in this sequence, and we're going to see if it actually works for us. So that's going to be this shot up here and this long shot in the hallway as Alex walks down the hall looking for every door he can get into. Now, the reason that I want to go ahead and attempt to make these jump cuts is because if you look at the rhythm and the cadence of the entire scene as a whole, the back half of the scene is much faster paced than the front half. It's pretty long and slow, and these shots do go on for quite a long time. And they don't necessarily fill us with lots of really exciting information. Alex really is just walking down this hallway here. So what can we do to try to make this a little bit more interesting and get the rhythm to match the rest of the scene as we've cut it together already? So let's just try making some jump cuts in this hallway shot first and see if it works. As Alex enters the hotel right here, he starts to walk, and this is maybe a good place to do our first jump cut. We can skip all the way into the hall here, skip this entire walk up the stairs, and cut out all that stuff. That's kind of an effective cut. It almost doesn't feel like a jump cut because we don't know the geography of this hallway just yet, but it does kind of work for us. Now here, he leans into this door. He's kind of leaning in there, and we could skip this entire hallway walk, maybe even just come right up to this door here and cut out all of this. Let's try that.
Margie, you in there? I forgot my key. Sorry.
Now, we don't have to have him even say sorry here. It might be a little bit too long. We could skip right ahead to another door.
Margie, you in there? I forgot my key.
By making these jump cuts, we're treating the audience as if they understand exactly what's going on and don't need to have a lot of explanation given to them in this moment. It also speeds up the flow and the cadence of things. Now, if we look at our timeline from an overhead perspective, we can see that the middle of the scene has gotten a little bit faster, kind of matching the cadence of the back of the scene a little bit better. Now we can try and look at other moments of this scene. For example, Alex trying to break in to this room. So after he looks at the ground here and sees the paint and the dust on the ground, he starts to decide to break into the room. Now we can skip him knocking. We would assume that he wouldn't bother knocking on this door. And we can cut right to this shot. And we can probably skip him even approaching the door here. Just have him take out the lockpick, and then cut right away to him messing with the lock on the door. We could even try to cut out the back of this shot as it tilts up. So all we do is have him look down at the ground here, play forward a little bit, and then he sees the dust on the ground. And we could even make this probably just a little bit shorter too. So less messing around with the pouch here, and a little bit less trying to get the lock pick into the actual lock. And all of a sudden, you can see that this is really starting to come together and be a little bit faster paced, more exciting scene. It almost works like a montage if we decided to add some music to it. Now, jump cuts might not always be the best choice for every scene. Let me just take, for example, another shot from this movie. I'm going to come down to scene 80 here, open up my bin. I'm going to grab the first shot from scene 80 and just toss it in the back of my timeline for example purposes. I'm going to move this back out of the way. And we're going to look at this shot here. Now, at first glance, if I were to go ahead and skim through this shot, this is 80, take 4, we can see this car is going to pull up to the dam. This guy's going to get out of the driver's side of the car, walk all the way to the entrance of the dam. Alex will come out of the passenger side of the car, wait, lay on the hood of the car, eventually get up, and then walk away. Now, this is not intended to be played by itself. There is other coverage of this scene. There are plenty of other shots to cut to of this moment happening. But let's just take, for example, if this was the only shot of the scene, if this was intended to be played in a nice, singular, wide shot. It's a really beautiful piece of coverage with all the mountains in the background. But there's one problem. I want you to pay attention to the actual shot itself as I start to scrub through. You might be noticing a lot of little micro shakes. The angle of the mountains is changing pretty rapidly. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a random jump cut. It's going to be him getting out of the driver's side. And then right here, Alex getting on the hood of the car. Now, if I were to go back and forth between these two, there's something kind of funky happening. This jump cut doesn't feel super continuous the way that our other jump cuts do. Check it out. It actually feels really jumpy. And the reason for that is because it's not exactly the same framing as it was from the first part of the shot to the last part of the shot. Now, in the hotel room example back here, every time we jump, nothing changes in the frame. The camera stays exactly stable. The walls of the room are the same. The light is always the same. There's very little actually changing in terms of what we actually jump. The thing that's actually jumping a lot is Alex right here. So the focus is firmly on what Alex's actions are, and not this sort of changing perspective of the camera angle. It even works in the hotel hallway here to make these jumps, because the camera is in motion the entire time. So it feels like time has jumped forward. But back here, in this shot, it feels kind of like a mistake. Like, ooh, that's not a very good jump cut. So how would we resolve that? Let's just say, for example, that we really wanted to make this jump cut. Well, there's a couple of different ways to do it. And one of those ways is to take this shot into After Effects, where you can use some of their stabilization tools to stabilize the shot first, then align every part of it to stabilize the shot before doing any actual editing. Before you would actually edit with this shot, you would send it to After Effects and stabilize it. That way, when you bring it back into your editing software, every edit that you make will feel more continuous. Now, alternatively, you might say, well, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't necessarily want to do that. The other method would be to take the shot in your timeline, bring it up to the second video track here, drag it out just a little bit on top of the first shot, and then try to manually align it. Now, this isn't exactly the best or most efficient method. Chances are you're going to have a really hard time getting it to be pretty much pixel perfect. And if you want your jump cuts to work, you want them to be pretty much pixel perfect. So what I might recommend doing, instead of trying to mess with this in your actual editing software, if you don't have the kinds of tools that will allow you to get this to be pretty much exactly accurate from one point to another, is to go ahead and just leave it as it was. And when you put your edit together, if you feel this is really important to show to the directors or producers, leave some text on top of the screen to let them know this is intended to be fixed later on, and that you really feel this is important to the flow of the edit. These kinds of notes are very common, and they're a great way to communicate your ideas and try them out without having to do a lot of work to actually make them perfect on the first try, because you might end up completely changing the edit of this scene anyway, and that cut might not make it into the next round of revisions.
Hey guys, Chris here. So this lesson has some optional homework. First, rough cut scenes 22 and 24. Then try your hand at jump cutting scene 24, take 6 of Alex in the hotel room to move through the shot more quickly and add a bit of style to the edit. And finally, smooth out the mix as best as possible using audio overlaps. Coming up in the next lesson, we're going to look at how you can use split screens and some compositing to adjust your scene's timing. All right, I'll see you in a bit.